All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. We are in Wings of Faith. This is Bitachon Blast 7, Freedom to Do What's Right. And anyone that knew Rav Usher personally knew this is what he stood for, that when you have Bitachon, you're not afraid of anybody. You just do what's right no matter what. Even if no one else is doing it, doesn't matter. You stop and you do whatever you have to do. All right. So freedom to do what's right, that's what Rav Usher is all about. So Shar Bitachon says, the Moteach is not subordinate to others and does not have to dance to another's tune. He does not rely on others for support and does not waste his efforts flattering them. He doesn't agree with others in matters that go against his principles of life and service of Hashem. And Rav Usher really stood for this. This was when the person has bitachon, the only person you have to answer to is Hashem. Of course, Yisrael you have to be nice to other people as well. But the only person that you really care about is what is Ratzon Hashem, and that's all that matters. There's nothing else. Rav Usher told over a story about his wife. A woman came to speak to my wife and told her that she had worked in a Haredi office, but there was much Lashon Hara being spoken. She had specifically taken a position in the Haredi setting so that she could not have issues in keeping halacha. So Rav Usher told over that his wife heard her plight and asked me what should she do. I talked to her about the severity of Lashon Hara and how it's a doraisa, just like stealing and eating pork. But I didn't want to tell her to give up her parnasa, so she should first consult a Rav. She went to Rav Chaim Pinchas Scheinberg for her psak halacha. He told her very clearly, I don't understand why you're even asking this question. Of course you have to quit immediately. It's not even a shaila. I was happy to hear said Rav Usher, but I shared with her the same sentiment. If you think about that, how many of us are willing to give up our job as well, even though they're a suri doraisa? But the point is that when a person recognizes the severity of an avera, this could really put our focus on what's right and help us recognize what we need to be doing. Chos always continues. The Boteach is not afraid to speak up and give rebuke when required. He doesn't pervert the truth because of a need to flatter others. The Baal Bitachon becomes free of dependence on others. Hashem assists me, therefore I am not embarrassed. Yeshaya 57. So Bitachon gives one freedom. I can be brazen when I need to be because I follow Hashem's will. And anyone that knows anything about Navardik, Rav Usher was a Talmud of from Yafin, the Alter Navardik's son-in-law, and this was what they were all about. Do whatever is right. They opened yeshivas throughout Russia, despite everything that was against them. It didn't matter. It didn't stop them. Rav Usher tells over a story like this. There's a well-known construction company that built apartments in Kiryat Sefer and elsewhere. They unfortunately went bankrupt. Investigations carried out publicly show that the owner took $4 million of the money for himself, causing the company to fold. 200 people in Kiryat Sefer are without homes that they already paid for. The accountants and employees of the company were indicted because they were all covered. They had all covered for Mr. Y, the owner. They all knew what was going on and that it was illegal, but they all cooperated because he was the boss. So now they're all suffering. It's still sheker, even if it's for the sake of business. Rav Usher was very big into this, that no matter what, the world of business offers many opportunities for sheker, but it doesn't matter. Claiming this is the norm of business or that my boss told me to do it is not acceptable. So if a person has bitachon, he puts his foot down and he says, this is not erlich, this is not right, and therefore we're not part of it. The same responsibility is being shared for those who helped Bernie Madoff with his scheme. Just because he was the boss doesn't allow you to claim your innocence when he clearly violated the law, even if you were handsomely compensated. And by the way, that's not an exaggeration. When his secretary was given a check for $75,000 for her help, she knew very well what she was getting paid for, according to most reports. And that's beyond all the thousands that everyone was making. It wasn't just Bernie. It was all the people that were helping him. You couldn't pull off a scheme like that without people that were helping, and that's why everybody went down with him. All the more so, the fact that you were being compensated so well should have further alerted you that something was wrong if you had a job for many years that you were being paid a certain amount and all of a sudden got all these raises. Rav Usher says now, I want to share with you a personal story about a shaila about honesty that we once had. A long time ago, my wife and I and our family had to go to America for a simcha, and my parents offered to pay for the tickets. Olympic Airlines, this was way before your time, said Rav Usher, was offering very cheap tickets for students. I was married with a few children and teaching at the time. And before I tell over the story, just think about the scenario and what you would do. And it's not about whether right or wrong, although I commend Rav Usher for asking a shaila. And the bottom line is that whatever answer he got, that's a psak halacha, and you never lose money because of that. But it's just an interesting thing that a lot of people, including myself, I wouldn't necessarily have even asked. So they were offering very cheap tickets for students. I was married with a few children and teaching at the time, thus I did not consider myself a student. Meaning, if someone was in kollel, maybe they would have had room to wiggle, but keep in mind that even with Rav Usher's teaching and other responsibilities, he certainly learned every day. But no, Olympic Airlines told all the travel agents that they did not care who the person buying the ticket was. If they said they were a student, then they were to receive a discount without any questions asked. Says Rav Usher, I asked my Rebbe, Rav Binyamin Hatzadik Zilber Zatzal, he was a big posek. He wrote a famous sefer Beis Baruch on the Chai Adam, a phenomenal saver. He was a Talmud of Rav Usher was a Talmud of him, and my Rebbe, my other Rebbe, Ephraim Greenblatt, was a good friend of his from Eretz Yisrael as well. They conversed in halacha. He was a big posik. So I asked him, could I use this loophole? He told me there's no heter for sheker just because they say they'll accept your sheker. You can't lie to them, period. So I called the airline. They would not give me the discount because I wouldn't say the words, I'm a student, and so I didn't get the discount. We bought the tickets without the student discount because I didn't qualify. Now, someone one time asked me on this story, they called me and they said, yeah, but who is paying for the ticket? It doesn't matter who's paying for this ticket. If you have generous relatives that are paying for your ticket, that's great. It doesn't mean they're allowed to lie and do fraud with their money. It means that you have to be responsible and try to find the cheapest ticket. Okay. So anyway, when a person has bitachon, they know that you can't rig the system. Anyone that thinks they're rigging the system, you can't steal more money from Hashem. It's like the mun. The more you collect, you end up with the exact amount that you're supposed to have. Now, what's his shtadlus? That's a good question. The Baal Bitachon frees his mind to concentrate on the most valuable pursuit of Avodas Hashem. Says Rav Usher, he tells over a story of watching a Daf Yomi. I'm not going to go into that right now, but you can read it. It's on page 33. This is a story that I got a lot of feedback for, and I'll try to share some of that with you. It's a few-part story, but we'll do part one today, and as it comes up, I'll make more comments. Moshe was a Talmud of mine 42 years ago, so that was in 2012 that story was told over, so do the math. And he is now a grandfather and is still sitting and learning all day in Mir Yeshiva. When his first daughter was ready to get married, he told me, I don't know how I'm going to marry her off, but I learned Shar Bitachon, and I know that Hashem will take care of us. He had a Rebbe named Rabbi Yeshua Grazinski from Bialystok. He passed away a few years ago and was a very chashuv person. His Rebbe had taught him well, and our yeshiva and Chovos HaLevavos also made its impact. He said, I don't have to tell the Kadosh Baruch Hu how to support me. He gave me life, and he will give me support. He knew with certainty and conviction that one who is learning in the Beis Medrash needs only to have bitachon, and Hashem's ability to support him is unlimited. So right before his daughter began to go out on dates, he was asked how much money he was offering to find a Mitzuyan Bacher. His daughter wanted a Talmud Chacham, and he wanted to support them in learning. He said that he would pay anything to help his daughter and son-in-law steig in Torah. He didn't know how, but Hashem would help. He had a sick aunt whom he visited, and she said to him, before I die, Maisha, by the way, I think that's a changed name. Anyway, I want you to know that in 1940, your father bought a piece of land somewhere in Israel. When he came to Israel to look at the land, he saw that he had been ripped off. It was a scam, and he had bought marshland. His aunt then told him that she has no idea where the land is located, but he should look into it. Your father was always too embarrassed to tell you about this mistake. She passed away, unfortunately, shortly after. This man, Moshe, went to the land registry and gave them his father's name, and they laughed at him. We only have paper records from that time, and there's no way for any of us to track down your father's swamp from 1940. After much frustration and time wasted with his investigation, he made up in his mind that when his daughter was actually going out to meet someone, he would extend one more effort to locate the land, which was his shtadlus. The day arrived, she was going out. Hashem sent him a person in the land's registrar's office who took interest in the case, and he said, I'm going to try my best to track down your father's land for you. They finally located it, and it was a lot near Herzliya, on the water. He had a few dunam, it was 4 dunam, which is about an acre of land, and that were now worth millions. His father's worthless purchase in the 40s, that he had been too embarrassed to tell even his family about, was now located in the hottest tourist spot and was prime real estate. The title was validated, and this allowed Rav Moshe to marry off all of his children with great honor, to support them in learning, and to continue to learn Torah day and night. Isn't that a cute story, said Rav Usher. I know this person personally. He's my Talmud. Hashem really takes care of us. Now, not always do we become rich. That's not what's best for us, but he really does take care of us. So I want to make a couple comments about this. This is what I call one of the Chovos HaLevavos Bitachon stories that some people think are the get-rich-quick schemes. And that is not the point of the story at all. Because the point of this man was that he knew that Hashem would support, because this is a ruchnius thing. How is my daughter going to marry a Talmud Chacham and me be able to help the family? Now, obviously, that triggers a lot about the kollel part for some people, and we'll talk about that in Hashem. We have a whole chapter on Rishon Baruch versus Rabbi Shmuel. But I want to say one thing that's relevant to the parsha. This story about get rich quick is actually based. There's actually a Gemara in Shabbos, and it's a Yerushalmi that tells a little bit more of a story, and there's a very specific detail that's not found in all the Midrashei Chazal, and I want to add it. It's a very fascinating story. The Gemara tells a story, and it's relevant to the parsha, as you'll see. The Gemara tells a story that there was a man who was walking in his field on Shabbos, and he noticed that his fence had broken down, and he realized that if his fence broke down, that animals are going to come into his property and eat his stuff. So, like a normal, healthy human being, he thought to himself, "Oh my goodness, the animals are going to attack my crops and eat the things in my field, and so I better build a fence and I'm going to close it up." But then he caught himself and he said, "This is Shabbos. Why am I thinking about things that I'm going to build after Shabbos. And so he said he made a promise to himself. He said, because I thought about doing a malacha on Shabbos of building up this fence and fixing the breach, I promise that I'm not going to fix the breach. I'm going to leave it open. Now, if you think that this is Ikar Adin, this is not Ikar Adin. We all have different thoughts, but you see how holy this person was when it came to Shabbos, and we'll explain why. The Gemara says that Hashem made a miracle, well, at least one of the Midrashim say, that Hashem sent a tzlaf chad, a caper bush. A tzlaf is a famous bush in Chazal, which was basically worthless. It was animal feed, and he made it grow, and it fixed up the fence, and it fixed in that spot that was open. And the Gemara says a funny thing, cute story, that this man actually, that caper bush actually produced so much fruit that he became rich off of it. So it's a very cheap fruit. Obviously, just didn't stop growing. It was kind of like, maybe it's the source for Jack and the Beanstalk, which, there's always a chazal of all these things. But anyway, so that's what happened. The Arizal says a very fascinating thing about this man. The Arizal says that this man was a Gilgal of Tzlaf Chad, and that's why the Midrashi Chazal say that there was a Tzlaf Chad. It's his name. It's a play on words, which we know is in our parsha. And he was the one that was Mechal Shabbos, according to Rabbi Kiva. He was Mechal Shabbos. And because Tzlaf Chad was Mechal Shabbos, that was his one Avera that he had, and he had to come back and be Masakin himself. And so when he saw this Tzlaf Chad, when he saw this fence that was open and he thought about being Mechal Shabbos, he held that, hey, my whole purpose of being alive is because I'm a Gilgal to be Masake and Tzlaf Chad. And now if I give in, then I'm going to ruin my entire purpose of being here. And so therefore he said to himself, I'm not going to fix this fence. And that's the story. And so what happened? He ended up getting rewarded. And that's a fascinating chazal. But what do you see? You see that when a person does the right thing, Hashem takes care of you. And sometimes Hashem takes care of you by giving you money from what you did, that in this chus of what this man did, he got everything. And that's a very, very important thing. And so when we talk about bitachon, bitachon means that I do what's right and I'm not worried about anything else. I want to leave off with one thought. I had a story I was going to tell, but there's a rule that whenever something comes to your mind, you should say it. So when I saw my friend Gedalia, I want to say over something that I found very inspirational. So even though it's Rosh Chodesh and we're in Tammuz, but for some people we're thinking about Av and El, right? So because this is what the summer is coming, one of my kids, I was taking them for a walk. So there's a family in our neighborhood. They put up beautiful signs in their house. So for Hanukkah, they always have beautiful stuff. So for Pesach, they had this beautiful sign that said, and Kol Dichvin Yesev, anyone could come visit. And of course, by Corona, they pulled it off and it just said Happy Pesach. And then they counted the Omer, beautiful, beautiful thing. Every night they would put a sticky note on their door. So when we passed by this Shabbos, my daughter said, Daddy, why is there nothing on there? And we started thinking, what's the next Yontif coming up? And she said, maybe they'll put something for Tisha B'Av. So I said, that's probably why there's nothing up. But maybe we'll see a chauffeur on there soon. So when she said that, I started getting nervous. So there's a beautiful thing. And this is what it is. It says that we have all these different things that we do on Rosh Hashanah. We daven. And this is relevant for all year long. Like all the Yom Tovim are relevant for all year long. So we daven. But one of the extra things that we do is a chauffeur. So the kasha is, which a lot of people ask, and I never heard this before, this pshat, which is very fascinating. Why is it that we need a shofar? A shofar is like an extra thing. Why do we need all these extra things? So we have all this tefillah, we daven, we spend many hours in shul, right? So why do we need an extra thing when it comes to Rosh Hashanah? So this kasha was asked by Daniel Gladstein, and it's a great thing. And Gedalia sent me his sefer, and he brings down an obscure shot from the Brisker Rav. From the Grizz, and he says this not in the regular Chumash, which is why I've learned through the Parsha ones, but this is in a drasha, and he says a brilliant and scary thing, and it's relevant, like I said, for every day, because Rosh Chodesh is a time of tshuva, it's man kapara l'chol todosam, and this is what he says. He says that when it comes to tefillah, so our mouth is only powerful as what we use it for. So it's great that we stand in front of Hashem with tefillah and we daven, but Hashem says, wait a minute, that mouth hurt people. That mouth said really bad things. That mouth said really inappropriate things. And so when we're standing in front of Rosh Hashanah, this our life depends on it. So we can't hope to Hashem that He's gonna look at our mouth and listen. So therefore, we have to bypass that. The one thing that we have that didn't hurt anyone is our krechs, is our inner voice that calls out to Hashem with utter sincerity. That there's no words, so Hashem can't have any tainas on that. So that usually we're nice erlich people. The time that we go, the time that we sigh, or the time that we care about other people. That's the one thing that we haven't abused and hurt people with. So that's what a shofar is. A shofar is crying out to Hashem. And so what I wanted to say is that the same thing And that's relevant for all times. Like I said, Rosh Chodesh is Man Kapara. We're always thinking about how do we use our mouth. Rishon Bar Yochai, the famous Yerushalmi, says that if he would have been at Har Sinai, he would have asked for two mouths because he said, how could I learn Torah and also waste my mouth and talk to other people? But then he said, now I see how much Lashon Hara is said with that one mouth. Now it's a good thing that Hashem didn't give us two. But it's not insignificant because we have two ears and we have two nostrils. There's something very significant about the fact and two eyes. There is something significant that we only have one mouth. It does show us that we should be speaking less and probably listening and looking more. But anyway, so when it comes to bitachon, what we recognize is we don't have to say negative things about other people because Hashem runs the world. When a person has bitachon, then he starts to use his mouth correctly. And so what I want to say on this as we approach Rosh Chodesh is that we want to take a time to think about the words that come out of our mouth. Over Shabbos, my grandfather's yahrzeit, 16th yahrzeit, Azriel ben Elio, his neshama Shev and Aliyah, and there's one thing that he taught me. It was to keep my mouth shut. When I was 13 years old, he took me to shul to learn, and there was a board meeting going on. I was never at a board meeting before. I was 13, and it was bad enough. He forced me to learn with the rabbi, and he forced me to come daven with the minyan. So we sat in the board meeting, and they said so and so died. And I said, oh, this is really awkward. I'm 13. I don't belong here. So we're going to have a moment of silence for him. And I sat there. And afterwards, I asked my grandfather, I said, what's a moment of silence? And he laughed at me because he knew I had a big mouth. And he said, when you get older, you'll understand that sometimes it's better to keep quiet. So Baruch Hashem, that's a lesson that he taught me. He taught me a lot of other good lessons, but he taught me to keep my mouth shut. And he definitely was very good at it. I'm definitely not. But one thing's for sure, that as we approach the times that we want Hashem to hear our tefillas, we have to use our mouth for the right things. So we should be zocheh, as we work on our bitachon, that we should learn how to keep our mouth shut and only say appropriate things. All right. I want to wish everybody a great day. And thank you, Gedalia. See, I told you I'm using it. Take care.
A good Chodesh. Yeshkech.
Thank you, everyone. Sorry, I think the note went out late, but I'm happy everybody made it.